he wanted to tell me. And he said, Mike, I've got this computer that I hook up to my tap water and my eyesight's getting better. So I hung up on him. It's February, it's season, I'm busy, I don't need to hear this craziness. So he called me back and said, oh, we got disconnected. I said, no, Adam, I hung up on you. Don't call me back with this crazy BS. So he didn't. About 2 weeks later, he calls me on the phone. I said, Adam, don't call me back. And he said, oh, but I'm outside and my son's with me and we want to see you. And I said, okay, Adam, come on in. Before I knew it, he had his DVD player and I was watching this Romy fellow and his testimony, and I didn't have time. I was doing paperwork. I watched it, which was interesting, and I said, Adam, forget it. Don't want to hear it. Got to go. I got to do a service call. Called me back a week later, said, did you watch the full video? I said, no, and then he stopped calling. Then I was wondering, if Adam stopped calling, something was up. So I looked at the DVD, and I was amazed at what this water was doing in Japan, so I researched it for 2 or 3 weeks. And I said, okay, I'm sold. He had me. So I said, Adam, I want to try some water. I said, where can I go in Fort Myers? And he said, nowhere. What about Marco Island? What about the West Coast? No. I said, what are you kidding me? Where do I have to go to get water? He said, Miami or Orlando, Florida. And I wasn't going to travel 3.5 hours to get water. So we had a trip planned up to West Virginia for Easter vacation because I have 4 kids, plumber with 4 kids. And when I got back, I ordered the machine, and when I got back, my machine was waiting for me. Now, being a plumber, sometimes you get a rash. Sometimes you get a real bad rash. And I had a real bad rash over our vacation. Matter of fact, I started getting pains in my lower abdomen. And I didn't have an opportunity to get to the doctor because I thought, well, I'll just sit through it. But it felt like I was dying. So when I got back home, my machine was there. I set it up. Well, first I made an appointment with my doctor. Then I set it up and started drinking the water that Wednesday. Thursday, I went to the doctor, and it was a new doctor. I mean, I've been with the same firm for 5 years, and I've had 3 or 4 different doctors. Apparently, if the doctors don't give enough prescriptions out, they get rid of them. So, a new doctor, I introduced myself to him, and he did my vitals. He said, geez, you have high blood pressure. And I thought to myself, I have high blood pressure? And he looks in his sheets, and he said, you've had high blood pressure ever since you've been coming here. And apparently at that time it was 162 over 102. But I was more concerned about my rash and the pain in my side. So he gave me a prescription for antibiotics and steroids because I actually had some boils, and it was pretty bad. So I went home that night, made some great acidic water, laid back, and put it on my rash. The next morning, my wife and I were just amazed. 50% of the rash was gone, and, and it was amazing. So I kept doing the acidic water on my rash, and I went back for a follow-up 2 weeks later. Went back, my rash was gone. The doctor said, hey, great, the medicine was doing well. And I said, well, I lost the prescriptions, but I was using my acidic water on it. And he looked at me kind of funny, and I told him about the machine I had. Beknownst to me, my wife made an appointment with a doctor for a colonoscopy 6 weeks later. So 6 weeks later, I get a call, and they say, oh, you have an appointment tomorrow for a colonoscopy. And I said, great, I'll be there, because I wanted to see what my colon looked like. We went in there, and the nurse came up, took my vitals, and she looks at me and my wife, and she says, yep, normal. And we looked at each other and said, what do you mean normal? She said, yeah, your blood pressure is 110 over 80. And I said, it can't be. And I said, take the other arm, would you? And we got into a little scuffle because she's been a nurse for 15 years and she knows what she's doing. And I told her, I said, no, please, because I have high blood pressure. She took it again, and it was normal. So my wife and I were just, again, amazed. So I went back. I said, document that to me. Then I went back to my other physician, and I got my vitals. My blood pressure for the last 5 years was no less than 150 over 100. And so at that time, we were pretty much sold with the machine.
I'd like to give you a little background history on my health. When I was about 15 years old, I was hit by a car. I didn't break any bones, but I got about 150 stitches in my knee, my elbow, and my shoulder. And at that point, I started taking all kind of different pain medications just to be able to get up and down stairs and so forth. Then when I was in the military, I ended up with 2 ruptured discs, which of course automatically with the military they hand out medicine like candy. So I was on all kind of new pain medicine. Then in 2096, I had my first heart attack. In 2002, I had my second heart attack. Of course, going to the military hospitals, they decided that I needed a lot more medicine, so they gave me a lot more medicine. In 2004, I had a stroke, which put me down for about 6 months. And again, they said that I should take some more medicine, which I did. As a matter of fact, I was carrying around at work a duffel bag full of medicine. And because of the medications, I became so lethargic, I was not doing anything, wasn't exercising, put on a bunch of weight. Also, I developed diabetes and a thing called plantar fasciitis, which, for you that don't know, that's basically where your arches are collapsing and severe pain in your feet. So other than that, I was doing great. So I was kind of like a train wreck. My brother called me up and said, listen, I think I found something that might be of help, because what the doctors were going to do, because with the 8 medications I was on for my heart, my stroke, it was not working. My blood pressure was like 180 over 120. My sugar with medication was like 300. Cholesterol was off the chart. So they were talking about giving me some kind of injections to kind of get everything under control. So he called me up and said, I think I found something. So after investigating it and having another heart attack, no, I'm kidding, I didn't, but the price almost did make me have a heart attack. And I'm sure when you hear the price, you're going to think maybe that it's not worth it. But let me tell you, within the first week of drinking this water, my blood pressure dropped from 180 over 120 down to 90 over 50. Now, that is too low. So I called up my brother, and he said, well, I think you're over-medicating yourself. So what I did is I took all my little pills and my little pill cutter, and I cut it in half. Second week, my blood pressure and sugar and everything was down still, so I took all my half pills and cut them into little bitty quarter pills. By the third week, I thought it was pretty stupid to keep taking the pills. So I ended up deciding to quit taking the medication, and I called my brother up, and he said, well, you better call your doctor. I said, right. And what is the doctor going to tell me? And he says, well, I don't know. I said, well, I do. He says, what? And I said, well, I'd probably say I'm going to cause him to miss a few car payments. So he's going to tell me to keep taking the medication, which I'm sure all of you know what I'm talking about. So I told him, I said, look, I've got an appointment with my cardiologist in 6 weeks. I'm going to keep taking my medication like I'm taking it right now, meaning nothing, and I'm going to keep drinking the water. And when I go to the doctor, I'm going to see what the doctor says. So I go to the doctor. I don't tell the doctor that I'm not taking the medication. He runs a full series of tests, everything from triglycerides, cholesterol, you name it. And I go back into his office. He comes in. He's got a little metal flip chart, and he opens it up, looks at the flip chart, and then he looks at me real funny and looks back at the flip chart, and he has a strange look. And I said, well, what's wrong? He says, nothing. I said, well, that's great. He says, well, this doesn't make sense. He says, this looks like the readings of a 20-year-old. I said, wow. I said, well, every time I've been in here, you've always told me to increase my medication. I said, should I increase it, decrease it? Tell me what I should do. He said, oh, no, you should keep taking your medicine exactly like you're taking it. I said, are you sure? I said, because my brother's been very concerned. He said, no, I'm positive. I said, well, I'll tell my brother, because 6 weeks ago, I quit taking my medicine. That little man jumped out of his chair and stood over top of me and screamed at me and said, who told you to do that? And I said, you just did. He said, no, I did not. I said, you did. You not only told me, but you told me to tell my brother. And he said, well, that's not what I meant. And I said, well, I don't know what you mean, but I'm not taking the medication. He said, well, if you're not going to follow my advice, then I'm not going to treat you. And he stomped out of the room. That was the last that I've seen of him. And I'm still not looking for him, so thank you.